You may have seen the recent Waco miniseries depicting the siege on David Koresh and the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas in 1993. I've heard people praising the miniseries for supposedly exposing the ATF and the FBI for its excessive force and malpractice that led to the deaths of over 75 people, around 25 of whom were children. But nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the miniseries is a complete whitewashing of government-sanctioned mass murder that occurred in Waco. Propaganda that seeks to exonerate the people at the top while explaining away the corruption as the work of a few cartoonish bad apples, and outright lies about the assault itself, and it completely omits the cover-up that took place afterwards. It's a rewriting of history, and quite frankly, it parallels what's happening today with the corruption of our federal law enforcement, complete with congressional hearings put on for the public that never lead to consequences. In other words, it was a really good propaganda piece for the citizens of our current police state. So let's dissect the lies. One of the aspects that makes this propaganda so effective is that they make David Koresh a relatable character. To build credibility with the audience, the propagandists have largely abandoned the distorted view of Koresh that was crafted by the federal government and the mockingbird media of the 1990s. The pedophile that thought he was Jesus that Americans were told about is portrayed more realistically as an actual human, maybe for the first time ever in mainstream media. I understand the need to dramatize things and truncate actual events in the time available for a miniseries, so I don't really take issue too much with how Koresh and the Branch Davidians were portrayed in the first few episodes. What I do take issue with is how the federal government is portrayed. The people behind the miniseries, who most likely received government approval for their script, try to gain the trust of the audience by showing us the incompetent bureaucrats of the ATF hopelessly screwing up an unnecessary raid that they had intended to put on as a show for the news cameras to justify or increase their budgets. The miniseries goes even further by showing the audience that the ATF shot first, murdering several of the Branch Davidians, and then destroying the tapes of the cameramen they had invited and lying to the public about it. Again, to be effective, they have to give you a little taste of the truth so you believe them when the lies come. In the show Waco, after the ATF has made a complete mess of the situation by storming the Branch Davidian church unannounced with guns blazing, taking the lives of several of its members, the FBI swoops in and we are introduced to the hostage negotiator with a heart of gold, in contrast to the evil militant FBI agent that is almost never seen without his tactical gear. Most of the series focuses on the hostage negotiator's efforts to reason with the Branch Davidians, who fear being murdered if they exit the compound. All the while, the militant villain FBI agent is insistent on using force. Eventually, the militant FBI agent wins the battle of wills, and I'm willing to excuse the inaccurate details of this characterization for the purpose of storytelling, but here come the big lies. While they do admit that the president is being kept apprised of the situation in Waco, they conspicuously never mention that that president is President Clinton. They then insert a scene where the bad FBI agents go to a woman that they never identify but who is obviously Janet Reno, Clinton's Attorney General, and they trick her into approving their plan to use force.
There's no other way to end this?
I'm afraid it's the only way.
Just like today when the media tells you that it's just Peter Strzok or McCabe or Comey and all the other bad apples working right under Obama's nose, and they tricked him in the FISA court into spying on Trump. You see, the ruling class in America is never held responsible, ever. And this miniseries covers up the Clinton administration involvement just as dutifully as if it had been produced by CNN. But that's not the most egregious lie. The biggest lie is the attack on the compound itself. And there is no excuse for this because we have video evidence of exactly what happened. In the miniseries Waco, after the bad FBI agents send the nice negotiator home, they decide to pump tear gas into the compound. The damage to the building traps the Branch Davidians inside, and the bad FBI agents start to panic when they see that nobody is leaving the buildings because, after all, they weren't monsters. They were just misguided and used excessive force out of frustration. In this context, we see the militant FBI villain brought to tears when he realizes what has gone wrong after valiantly rushing into danger to try to save the suffocating Branch Davidians. This is a disgusting lie. But it's what they need you to believe. They need you to believe that overly aggressive but basically good people got carried away and lied to the Attorney General so that the president, who will remain nameless, would sign off on a poorly thought out but well-meaning plan, and things just got out of hand. It was all just a big accident. Nothing could be further from the truth. For starters, Bill Clinton closely watched and to some extent orchestrated the invasion in Waco. The siege had gone on for 50 days on national television. The compound itself was a treasure trove of damaging evidence that would implicate the federal government in the murders of several innocent church members. Clinton needed a decisive win. In fact, sources close to Clinton have revealed that Janet Reno was kept on as Attorney General for taking the fall for the attack in Waco. And by taking the fall, I mean nothing ever happened to her. No prosecution, no discipline, just bad press. As bad as CNN would make it for anyone in the Clinton administration, because the ruling class is never held to account. So what exactly was this plan? As it happens, infrared or FLIR footage from FBI surveillance cameras show that the FBI, possibly with the help of members of Delta Force, opened fire on the compound during the assault, killing those that tried to flee the flames. A total of 15 people were found dead of gunshot wounds at the only exit that wasn't engulfed by flames. The FLIR footage and forensic evidence also shows Branch Davidians were run over by tanks that knocked down walls and pumped the compound full of flammable gas, while flashbang grenades were thrown into the gas-filled buildings, as well as what appears to be other incendiary devices used to start the fire. Devices that, when recovered from the evidence locker years later, were conveniently mislabeled as silencers or gun parts. It is illegal for the government to use military force against civilians without the authorization from Congress. But President Clinton illegally authorized the use of Delta Force, who were likely the individuals seen exiting this Bradley tank and opening fire on the Branch Davidians attempting to escape. They may have also been the individuals seen firing into the compound from this helicopter, and were undoubtedly the team used to place and detonate this explosive, which was placed on the roof of this safe room where the women and children had fled to, trying to escape the flames. When detonated, this explosion blew a hole through the concrete reinforced roof, sending shrapnel throughout the room, dismembering many of the women and children, while the fire finished them off. The federal government at the highest levels wanted these citizens dead and the evidence destroyed, and they murdered these innocent people on live television as fake news CNN lied to the public over and over and over again. At no point did they have an epiphany and run into the flames only to face the error of their ways. They summarily executed these people and then destroyed the evidence. How remorseful do these FBI agents look, standing on the smoldering ashes of their victims and taking trophy photos. This is how the deep state rewrites history, as the murderers involved live out the rest of their lives on comfortable government pensions, never facing any consequences. This is the new fiction the public is fed. The Waco miniseries ends with the nice guy hostage negotiator being called to testify. But that's where it ends. It fades to black. We never see the hearings. The hearings where Chuck Schumer, yes, that same Chuck Schumer, is in full deep state cover-up mode.
It is absolutely clear that no law was violated, no action was taken that comes close to violating posse comitatus or any other law. General Huffman, do you agree with that?
Congressman, so far as the Army's involvement in this, I would say that is correct.
Defending the ATF, the FBI, and the president, lying about David Koresh and the Branch Davidians in front of the families of the dead, and the few survivors that escaped the mass murder of the federal government. We never hear any testimony like this.
Sorry, sir, you mentioned that notes were torn out of the surveillance log.
I was just wondering, how does that happen?
Or this.
Sir, I think we've missed some of the questions as to, as I mentioned earlier, why items of evidence have disappeared, why the crime scene was destroyed before it could be evaluated.
Or this.
Judy Snyder was shot while nursing her baby through the chest.
There was also no mention of Vince Foster's involvement or how files on Waco were removed from his office the night of his suspicious death, files that were brought directly to Hillary Clinton.
I was told that the contents of the box needed to be reviewed.
Reviewed by whom?
By the First Lady.
So that she could, quote, review them. Instead, Waco is expertly crafted propaganda, designed to protect the ruling class by lying about their involvement, and protect the deep state by minimizing the horrors and the brutal acts of war the federal government perpetrated on its own people. It's a stunning example how the elites in Hollywood are joined at the hip with the deep state, and how they take advantage of the American people's ignorance. The similarities between this deception and the media's current portrayal of the present is all too telling of the complete disregard the elites have for the rule of law and human life. Your life doesn't matter now, just as the Branch Davidians' lives didn't matter then. And should you find yourself in the way of these sociopaths, these are the clever lies they will tell a disengaged and gullible public until people wake up and hold them to account. From Blackpilled, I'm Devin Stack. If you like my videos, please donate whatever you can to the cryptocurrency addresses in the description, or you can become a supporter on my Patreon at patreon.com/blackpilled. You can also get my videos on BitChute. The channel name is the same, Blackpilled.